Welcome back to Handmade with Holly. My name is Holly Michelson, and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Del Mar, New York, just outside of Albany. I'm really excited that you could join me today. I have a very fun project planned. We're going to make these easel fold cards so you can see that they fold flat to be mailed, and with just a simple touch, you can turn them into a three-dimensional easel card. So these are great, and I think they really pack a lot of wow for the recipient. Now, before we get started, I want to just go ahead and remind you that if you're not already a subscriber to my YouTube channel, I'd really appreciate it if you would click the subscribe button so that you can be part of my YouTube channel. Also, you'll want to click on the notifications bell, and that way you'll automatically be notified each time I upload a new video. Right now, I'm typically uploading a new video about once a week. Also, if you enjoy this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up, and I love it when you leave me comments, questions, or let me know what your favorite projects are from the video. Love to hear from you, and I promise that I will respond. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started on our project for today. I'm going to actually make the whiskey business version of the card today. I've also got this cute one using the sweet ice cream set, but in the interest of time, I'm just going to make one since the process is exactly the same. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the materials that we're going to need for today's project. For this card, I used the Whiskey Business stamp set, which is the stamp set right here. I had to do a little bit of fussy cutting, so we're going to need some paper snips to be sure that we can cut out the lemon peel and also the On the Rocks glass. I used the Tasteful Textiles in 3D embossing folder. I don't know how well you can see this here, but this embossing folder basically makes like a fabric textile texture on your paper. And you can see where I did that here on the background of our easel. And we're also going to need the Scalloped Contours die set. This die set actually has a couple of flowers as well. We're not using them in today's project, but I did use this dotted scalloped rectangle, and I also used this stitched scalloped rectangle to cut out parts for our project. And other than that, I used paper. Before I get into the exact paper that we're going to need though, let's take a quick peek and see what supplies I used for this version of the card. On this one, I used the Sweet Ice Cream stamp set and the Coordinating Ice Cream Builder Punch. This is great for punching out the ice cream scoops and also the ice cream cone. And for an embossing folder, this time I used the star-crossed embossing folder. This embossing folder is really interesting because in one embossing folder, you get the star pattern and you get this checked plaid sort of pattern. And I like this pattern because it reminded me of a waffle cone. So what I did was a little bit tricky, and I ran this through the embossing machine a few times, lining up the stripes so that I could get that waffle pattern in a full rectangle on the back. So that is a little tricky. If you want something a little simpler, I recommend maybe you choose a different embossing folder, perhaps one of the polka dots embossing folders. I didn't happen to have that one myself, so onto the wish list it went. Okay, in terms of paper, we don't need much paper at all for this card, but you will need a piece of neutral cardstock for your card base. I chose to use Very Vanilla on this one. For this one, I used basic white, but you can see this is simply a quarter sheet of 8.5 by 11 inch cardstock. It's 4 1/4 by 5.5. So you can get 4 of these out of a single piece of cardstock, meaning you could make 4 of these easel cards. You're also going to need a piece of designer series paper, and this is just cut to be a 1/4 inch shorter on both sides. So this measures 4 by 5 1/4, and it layers nicely, leaving this nice border around the edge of the card. You'll need two pieces of colored cardstock that coordinate with your designer series paper. This piece measures 2 3/4 by 8.5 tall. And then I have a second piece that's 2 3/4 by 4 1/4, or in other words, exactly half. So you can see if I line that up, it's half the size, and we're going to use that to layer on top of our folding mechanism. So 2 3/4 by 8.5, and then 2 3/4 by 4 1/4. And then I recommend maybe having a half sheet of basic white on hand. From that half sheet, you're going to want to cut your scalloped rectangle that we're going to use to highlight our image. You're going to want to be able to cut the piece out for your sentiment. And I also needed to cut out my whiskey glass and my lemon peel. So maybe just have a half sheet of basic white on hand for all of the various pieces and parts that you're going to cut. And then other than that, we just need the core basics that we generally use whenever we're stamping. We're going to need our paper snips, our bone folder. We're going to want some sort of adhesive like Stampin' Seal. You might like some ribbon or other embellishments for your card, depending on what it is that you'd like to decorate. In my case, I used some recently retired ribbon from the 2020 to 2022 in color ribbon. And this color is Cinnamon Cider, which is one of our new in colors that was introduced last year. And you might even want to have something like some gemstones or rhinestones on hand that you may want to use to fancy up your card. You can see on this one, I actually put gemstones in each of the corners. These were basic gemstones, and I just colored them using my Stampin' Write markers in Mint Macaron to make them match my paper. Also, I should have mentioned that the sentiment on this card is actually from the Stitiched Rectangles dies, and I used this rectangle right here to cut out my sentiment on this card. I didn't love it as much though, however. I needed this sentiment to be this long in order to fit the sentiment from the Sweet Ice Cream stamp set, but I didn't love the fact that it was just slightly wider than my easel. So this was my first draft card. This one's just a little bit less fussy in the one we're gonna make today. In addition to the supplies we've already talked about, you're gonna need your Stampin' trimmer, which we will be using in just a moment. And you're going to need the right ink. For this card, I used Memento Tuxedo Black to stamp the whiskey bottle and lemon peel and whatnot. And I also used the Cinnamon Cider to stamp the sentiment here. We're going to use Stampin' blends as well. And for those, I have Light and Dark Mango Melody, Light and Dark Cinnamon Cider, and I have the Color Lifter. And I also used a little bit of Wink of Stella on the glass at the end. All right, let's get started. So the first thing that we're gonna do is we're going to score the long sheet of colored cardstock. And don't worry about writing down the measurements. I will put these in the description for today's video. But we're gonna go ahead and score this at 2 1/8 So put it at the 2 mark and then shift it over 2 little lines. And we're going to go ahead and score it here. And then we're going to go ahead and score it again at 4 1/4. Okay, so now we have our 2 score marks. We're going to take our designer series paper and put some Stampin' Seal on the back. Okay, and then we're just going to go ahead and mount it to our card base. Now, make sure if your designer series paper has a top and a bottom that you're positioning it in the direction that you would like. I'm going to do it the opposite direction that I did the last time, just because I think this paper can go either way. I'm going to go ahead and mount that down. And we have our scored piece of cardstock, but we're going to want to go ahead and burnish that using our bone folder. So I'm running the bone folder across each of those seams to burnish that and give them a really nice clean fold. And you'll see that if we flip it over on the side where we have the 2 bends, this is the side that's going to be facing up, and the flat side is going to be the side mounted to the card. So this is going to be the inside of our card, so we want that nice and flat. And the bent portion is the mechanism that's going to allow the easel to fold flat and then to stand up. So this is the part that needs to be on top. Again, we're just going to go ahead and put our Stampin' Seal . Okay, and I would use a good amount of adhesive on this since the card is going to have some movement and be opened and closed quite a few times. And then just go ahead and eyeball it on your page where you think left and right are center and give it a press. So we have this other sheet of cardstock, and I'm going to need to run it through the cut and emboss machine, and that is on my back table. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and be right back. Okay, so I got this great piece of embossed paper. It looks like it has this textile texture to it, and we're going to go ahead and mount this onto our card. So you want to be careful that you only put adhesive on the bottom part. If we were to put adhesive up here on the top, then the card's not going to be able to bend the way that it needs to bend. So we just want adhesive down on this section. For that reason, it may be easier just to put the adhesive directly on this part instead of on the back of the textured one. That way we are sure we don't get any adhesive up here on that section. So I'm going to go ahead and line that up and give it a press. And now we have our folding mechanism, right? Okay, so that's the hard part. We've done all the hard stuff. Now we get to work on the fun decorating portions. I'm going to go ahead and take my pre-cut scalloped contour die. Again, it came from this die right here out of the Scalloped Contours set. And I'm going to go ahead and stamp my whiskey bottle. So with a stamp this size, I like to flip it over and tap the ink pad onto the stamp itself. That way I can ensure I get good even coverage. And then go ahead and place it toward the bottom of the rectangle, or center it, whatever your preference is. I'm going to give that a press. Great, perfect image. And while I have the memento out, let's go ahead and stamp our whiskey glass. For me, I'm just going to use up some scraps from some other projects. Remember, we're going to be cutting this glass out. so it doesn't matter what's around it. That'll work just fine. And I'm also going to stamp the lemon peel. So let me just find another little scrap here. And I'm going to stamp my lemon peel. I don't love that one. I'm going to try it again. I like that one a little bit better. Okay. I'm going to let these dry for just a moment, and I'm also going to come in and stamp my sentiment onto the pre-cut label that I made. So I have Cinnamon Cider ink right here. I'm going to line it up on my grid paper so I can make sure that it's straight. And forgive my head if it gets here in the camera, but go ahead and stamp that. Pretty good. It's a smidge too close to the left. I wish I had it a smidge more to the right, but I will say it's tricky to do that while you're trying to keep your head out of the camera. So we're gonna grab our snips, and I'm just gonna fussy cut the whiskey glass. And I'm gonna fast forward the video so it'll get quiet and move a lot faster, just so that you don't have to spend a lot of time watching me fussy cut. Okay, now that I've fussy cut, we can go ahead and start to color. I'm going to use the light Mango Melody to color in my lemon peel. And I could have colored these before I fussy cut. Either way would be fine. I'm just giving them a quick run over with the marker once. And then where I want it to be darker, I'm going to go back over it a second time. So whatever I consider to be the outside of the peel, I'm going to go back over that. And to be honest, I think using the smaller tip would be better for this. I was just using the wider tip and it was just a little too wide. So I recommend this bullet tip here, coloring in the lemon. I'm going to come back one more time with the dark Mango Melody just to try to get the outside of the peel to be a little bit darker than the inside there. Okay? And now I'm going to use the light Cinnamon Cider to color in the whiskey. Want to take your time and be careful to avoid the ice cubes. We want to leave those white. And if there's areas where you want to darken it up a little bit, go back over it a little bit more and sort of darken up the edges of the whiskey. Cute. Okay, now we're going to color in our whiskey bottle here. I'm actually going to start with the Mango Melody, and I'm going to put a little bit of yellow in the center of my whiskey so that that kind of creates some of the highlights and the color dimensions for the whiskey. And then I'm going to come over it with the light Cinnamon Cider. Again, when I'm coloring, you want to make sure you're staying within the glass bottle and that you're not getting like down here, which is meant to be the glass. So you just want to stay within the whiskey area of the bottle and kind of approach the edge of that yellow, but don't color it in yet. And now I'm just going to very lightly bring some whiskey over that, but doing it lightly enough that I'm kind of letting some of the yellow peek through. Oh, I need to color this whiskey here too. And look at that, I didn't on the other card. Let's come back and fix that. Now I'm going to come back in with the Mango Melody, and I'm going to layer some more yellow on top. And again, I'm just trying to bring out some of that dimension of color of the whiskey. So hopefully you can see that. It looks like light reflecting on the glass and giving it some highlight there. Okay, I think those are our pieces that we need. We have our sentiment. Let's go ahead and place that first. So I didn't mention this earlier, but you'll need some Stampin' dimensionals, and we're going to put 2 of these on the back of our sentiment. I'm going to go ahead and use my Take Your Pick tool to remove the paper backing there. And then we're going to go ahead and just place our sentiment down wherever we would like that. And that's going to create the stopping mechanism where the easel can hook in, right? So I just put that right there. And we have our front panel. I'm going to go ahead and use the dimensionals again. This time I'm going to snip some dimensionals from the edge. I want something a little bit smaller. So I'm going to use these edge pieces on the glass. And then I can go ahead and overlap that wherever I like. I'm going to use the Stampin' seal on the back of the lemon peel. And notice I'm doing that on my silicone craft mat. So this extra adhesive just peeled right off. I can just move that out of the way with my Take Your Pick tool, and I can go ahead and place that down. I have a little bit of extra white there, you can see, but it's kind of, it blends in nicely with the background and doesn't create too much of a fuss. Let's go ahead and use the Tombow liquid glue on the back. And this is going to give us really good adhesion since the card's going to be moving and, you know, we've got the 3D dimension. This will give us some extra staying power. I'll go ahead and visually find the placement. I would always err a little bit on the side of toward the top, just because you know this is going to be tucked in there. You're going to lose a smidge of the bottom. And I'm going to give that a press. There we go. Now I'm going to come in with my Wink of Stella, and this just adds some shimmer. And I liked doing this because the bottle is a glass bottle, and I thought that the shimmer from the Wink of Stella would help it reflect the light and make it look more like glass. Not that whiskey's sparkly, but just that I wanted my glass to have a little shine to it. So I'm not just going over where the whiskey is, I'm going over anything that is meant to be the glass bottle and adding some shine. And so I'm going to do the same thing here with the whiskey glass, since this is a glass. Cute, so cute. All right, Now I have a choice. On the inside here, I stamped Cheers to You, and I can do that again on the inside. Remember, Wink of Stella takes a few minutes to dry, so I'm gonna leave that be for a minute. But if I wanna go ahead and stamp the Cheers to You on the inside, I can do that. Last time I did it with the Memento Black. I'm gonna try it this time with the Cinnamon Cider and see which I like better. Again, lining up my project along a horizontal line so I can make sure it's straight. Well, I think my stamp was on the block slightly crooked because even though the card was straight, I stamped my sentiment a little bit off, but that's what happens when you're doing a video. I'm sure my husband, who will be getting this card, will forgive me. All right. Coming together there. And lastly, let's go ahead and make our bow. Okay, so I'm going to be making a bow here. I'm going to make the first loop and then make the second one and wrap it around, bring it through, flip it over, and pull it tight. Just sort of fiddle with it till you're happy with it. And then we're going to go ahead and trim it from the spool of ribbon. So these tails are probably a little long. We'll trim them in just a second. But I'm going to go ahead and take one of my glue dots and I'm just going to touch the bow down onto the glue dot to peel that off, and then I can use the glue dot to attach my bow right to the whiskey bottle. And now I'm just going to trim any extra off. Maybe even a smidge more there. Okay, I think my card is finished. So before I wrap up though, I did want to show you that In Good Taste paper. So this is the paper that I used here. This set of paper has these gorgeous textures. They're a really nice complement to this textured embossing folder, to be honest. Lots of wood, tile, lots of really great. This sort of has a macrame look to it. This looks like denim, more wood, and this one even looks like textured brushed paint. And if you turn it over on the back side, we've got more gorgeous tiles. This is the piece that I used in today's project. Tile, hexagon tile. Here's some more paint, this time with a pink undertone. This actually looks like stacked stone. Delft tile, more paint, more wood, really beautiful. And this is another sort of textured textile sort of paper. So gorgeous papers, fairly generic. They really could work with any stamp set. Great if you're making some masculine cards. A lot of beautiful paper in there. And that is a different pack of paper. Normally the designer series paper comes in packs of 12. This set actually comes as a pack of 24, so you get 12 different designs and 2 pieces of each for a full 24 sheets in that pack. So it's a little bit more expensive than a standard pack of designer series paper, but a great value considering you get 24 sheets. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and just bring in our other sample here with the ice cream cones so we can see all of our samples, remembering I used gemstones instead of ribbon on this one. I'd love for you to leave me a comment down below and let me know which one's your favorite, if you like Whiskey Business or if you like the sweet ice cream one. I'd love to hear from you. If you've enjoyed today's video, please give it a thumbs up, and I hope you'll tune in the next time for my next video. Hit that subscribe button so that you get notified next time I post that video. Thanks again for joining me. Until the next time. Bye.